My sister told me there was no more room at the family table. 3 hours later, everything fell apart. I should tell you from the beginning, I was never the daughter my parents bragged about at dinner parties. That was always Hannah, golden hair, perfect grades, the kind of smile that made strangers stop and comment. I was the one who looked like our father's side of the family, the quiet one, the forgettable one. My mother used to introduce Hannah first at every gathering, then pause before mentioning me, like she had to remember I was there. When I was 12, I stopped waiting for her to introduce me at all. I just started introducing myself. People think favoritism is dramatic, screaming matches and locked doors. It's not. It's quieter than that. It's your mother asking about your sister's day at school and forgetting to ask about yours. It's Christmas photos, where you're always on the end. It's the way your father looks past you when he talks about being proud of his daughters, plural, but his eyes only find one face. I learned to be okay with it, or I told myself I did. You get used to being the supporting character in your own family. Then when I was 23, everything changed. My mother got sick, stage 3 cancer, the kind with percentages that make your stomach drop. Hannah was living 2 states away by then. She had just started a new job in marketing, important meetings, client presentations. I was still local, working as a medical transcriptionist, flexible hours, no one depending on me for anything crucial. So I became the caretaker, not because anyone asked, because someone had to, and I was the one who was there. I drove Mom to every chemotherapy appointment, 47 of them. I kept a notebook tracking her medications and side effects. I held her hair back when she was sick. I cleaned things I never imagined I would have to clean. I slept on her couch most nights. Hannah visited twice, both times for a weekend. She cried a lot and took photos with Mom that she posted with long captions about being strong. People commented with heart emojis and praying hands. They called her inspiring. They said she was an amazing daughter. I wasn't in any of those photos. I was usually at the pharmacy or cleaning up. Someone had to keep things running. Mom recovered. Against the odds, against what the doctors quietly prepared us for. She went into remission after 18 months of treatment. The night she got the news, she called Hannah first. I was sitting right there in the hospital room when she did it. I watched her face light up as she told Hannah the good news. Then she handed me the phone and said, "Tell your sister I love her." I did because what else was I going to do? I had learned a long time ago not to compete for something that was never mine to win. 6 months after remission, Hannah got engaged to someone named Marcus, a finance guy with good hair and a family lake house. Mom cried happy tears when Hannah video called to show us the ring. Dad opened champagne even though it was 11 in the morning. The wedding planning started immediately. Hannah had a Pinterest board with 400 pins. She flew home every other weekend to meet with vendors. I helped where I could. I went to dress fittings. I addressed invitations. I picked up flowers when the florist's delivery fell through. Hannah asked me to be a bridesmaid, not the maid of honor. That was her college roommate. But I would be in the wedding party. I said, yes, obviously. I bought the dress she chose, lavender silk, expensive, not my color, but it made her happy. The wedding was planned for June, garden venue, white roses everywhere, a string quartet, 300 guests, half were Marcus's family connections. 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a call from Hannah. She sounded stressed but excited. A million last-minute details to handle. She mentioned the seating chart, said she had been working on it for days. There were so many people to coordinate, so many family politics to navigate. Then she paused and said something I will remember for the rest of my life. So, we will not seat them at the main tables. I didn't respond right away. I thought maybe I had misheard. Near the exit, at a 300-person wedding. She kept talking, explaining how Marcus's family had a lot of important tables to fill, and Mom and Dad wanted certain people close to the front. And the bridal party was sitting at a head table, so I would not be with them. But don't worry, you'll be with some cousins. Cousins I had met exactly once at a funeral, 7 years ago, but sure, that made sense in Hannah's world. I told her it was fine. I used the voice I had perfected over years of being the understanding one, the flexible one. After we hung up, I sat in my car for 20 minutes. I had just pulled into the grocery store parking lot. People walked past me carrying bags of food, normal people doing normal things, and I felt something crack open inside my chest. I had spent 18 months making sure Mom survived. I had put my life on hold. I had given up job opportunities, relationships, sleep. And my reward was a seat by the exit door with strangers, while Hannah glowed at the center of everything. But I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I drove home and I kept the feeling locked somewhere deep where it could not touch anyone else. The week before the wedding, I helped Hannah with final preparations. I picked up her dress from alterations. I confirmed vendor deliveries. She was stressed, snapping at people, crying over tiny details that didn't matter. I stayed calm. I fixed what I could fix. Mom kept saying how lucky Hannah was to have me, how I was always so reliable, so steady, so undemanding. I smiled and nodded, because that's what I did. I made things easier for everyone else. That was my role. The night before the wedding, there was a rehearsal dinner, fancy restaurant, private room, speeches and toasts. Dad gave a speech about Hannah, about how proud he was, about watching her grow into this incredible woman. His voice shook with emotion. Mom talked about Hannah's kindness, her strength during the cancer treatment, how she had been such a light during the darkest time. I sat at the end of the table. I clapped when everyone else clapped. I smiled when people looked my way. Nobody mentioned me, not once, not even in passing. I was furniture, necessary but unnoticed. That night, lying in bed in my childhood room, I made a decision. I was going to the wedding. I was going to sit by the exit door. I was going to smile in photos and hug people and be exactly what they expected me to be. And then I was going to walk away from all of it quietly, permanently, in a way they would not see coming. But I didn't know then that I wouldn't even make it through the reception, or that what happened would change everything. The wedding day was perfect. Clear sky, warm sun, a breeze that moved through the garden like something out of a movie. I put on the lavender dress. I did my makeup. I wore the shoes that hurt my feet. I drove to the venue alone. The ceremony was beautiful. Hannah cried. Marcus cried. Mom cried. Half the guests cried. I stood in the back row of bridesmaids and watched. During the family photos afterward, the photographer kept trying to organize us. Big family shot first, then parents with bride, then siblings. When he called for siblings, Hannah waved me over. I stood next to her. The photographer looked through his camera and frowned. "Can you shift a little to the left?" he said to me. "You're blocking the light on Hannah's dress." I shifted. I was good at shifting. The reception hall was stunning. White flowers cascading from the ceiling, candlelight everywhere. Tables with cream linens and gold chargers. One found my table, number 32, near the exit, just like Hannah had promised. I could hear dishes clattering behind the door. The cousins were already seated. They looked at me blankly when I sat down. We exchanged names. They immediately went back to talking amongst themselves. From where I sat, I could see the head table, Hannah and Marcus in the center, glowing, the bridal party on either side, laughing. My parents at a table near the front with aunts and uncles. Everyone who mattered was close to the action. Everyone except me. Dinner was served, salmon or chicken. I picked at the salmon. The cousins talked about people I didn't know. I checked my phone under the table. Then the toasts started. The best man told a funny story about Marcus in college. Everyone laughed. The maid of honor cried while talking about Hannah. Dad stood up. He was not on the official toast list, but nobody was going to stop him. He talked about his little girl growing up. He told a story about teaching Hannah to ride a bike, how determined she was, how she refused to give up, how proud he was of that determination. He never taught me to ride a bike. I learned from a neighbor kid when I was 9, but nobody knew that story. Mom didn't give a toast, but she stood up to hug Hannah afterward. She held her for a long time. Hannah melted into her arms. I watched from table 32. I felt something inside me go very quiet and very still. The DJ started playing music. First dance, then parent dances. Dad danced with Hannah. Mom danced with Marcus. Then the floor opened up to everyone. People streamed onto the dance floor, happy, drunk, celebrating. I stayed at my table. One of the cousins asked if I wanted to dance. I said I was going to get some air. I stood up and walked toward the exit. But I didn't go outside. I went to the bathroom, the fancy one near the main hall with the big mirrors and the little soaps shaped like roses. I stood at the sink and looked at myself. The lavender dress, the careful makeup, the smile I had been holding all day. And I realized something. I was done. Not angry, done. Not dramatic, done. Just done in a way that felt final and clear. I was going to leave, not make a scene, not tell anyone, just collect my purse and walk out the door. They wouldn't notice. I would be the woman who left early from the wedding, the sister who didn't stay for the cake, the daughter who didn't make a fuss. I would go home. I would pack my apartment. I would take the job offer in Seattle that I had been sitting on for 2 weeks. I would start over somewhere. Nobody knew me as the other daughter, the forgettable one, the one who didn't deserve a seat at the good tables. I took a breath. I fixed my lipstick out of habit. I opened the bathroom door and nearly ran into my mother. She looked surprised to see me, like she had forgotten I was at the wedding, which maybe she had. "Oh, honey," she said, "there you are. I was looking for you. Could you do me a favor and check with the caterer about the cake timing? Hannah is worried they're gonna cut it too early. You're so good at handling these things." I stared at her. She was wearing a champagne-colored dress. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was flawless. She looked happy. She looked like a mother at her daughter's wedding, proud, glowing, completely. Unaware that the other daughter was standing right in front of her, breaking. I opened my mouth. I was going to say something. I don't know what. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But then someone called Mom's name from down the hall, so one of her friends. She patted my arm and said, "Thanks, sweetie. You're the best." And she walked away. She didn't wait for my answer. She didn't look back. She just assumed I would do what I always did. I stood there in the hallway. Music thumped from the reception hall. People laughed. Glasses clinked. Life happened around me. And I walked past the reception hall, past the caterer's station, past the coat check, straight to the parking lot. I got in my car. I took off the shoes that hurt my feet. I sat there for a minute with my hands on the steering wheel. My phone was buzzing in my purse. Probably Hannah wondering where I was. Probably Mom asking about the cake. I turned off my phone. I started the car. I drove home. The whole way I kept expecting to feel something dramatic. Rage, sadness, vindication, but I just felt tired. Tired in a way that sleep wouldn't fix. I got home and changed into sweatpants. I made tea. I sat on my couch and stared at the wall. Around midnight, my phone started ringing. I had turned it back on out of habit. Hannah's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring, then Mom called, then Dad, then Hannah again. I didn't answer any of them. The next morning, I had 23 missed calls and a dozen text messages, most from Hannah, a few from my parents. Hannah's texts started concerned. "Where are you? Are you okay?" Then they got frustrated. "You missed the cake cutting. People were asking about you." Then they got angry. "This was my wedding. How could you just leave? You didn't even say goodbye." Mom's text was short. "Call me when you can. We're worried." Dad didn't text. He never did. He probably didn't notice I left. I didn't respond to any of them. I made coffee. I opened my laptop. I emailed the company in Seattle and accepted the job. Start date in 3 weeks. I could do that. I spent the day researching apartments, making lists, planning my exit. Hannah called again that afternoon. I answered this time. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hear what she would say. She was crying. She said I had ruined her wedding. That people kept asking where I went. That she had to make excuses for me. That I was selfish and dramatic, and she couldn't believe I would do this to her on the most important day of her life. I listened. I didn't interrupt. When she finally stopped to breathe, I said I was sorry she felt that way. "That's it?" she asked. "That's all you have to say?" I said yes. That was all I had to say. She hung up on me. I set down my phone. I went back to apartment hunting. I felt nothing. Just that same deep tiredness. Mom called the next day. She was calmer than Hannah, but clearly disappointed. She said I had embarrassed the family. That people were talking, that I should have stayed, that I should have been there for my sister. I asked her if she noticed where they seated me. She paused, then she said it was just seating arrangements. It wasn't personal. There were a lot of people to accommodate. I asked if she noticed I wasn't in any of the speeches. She said I was being sensitive. I asked if she remembered who drove her to chemotherapy every week for 18 months. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said that was different. That was family taking care of family. That's just what you do. I said, "You're right. And that's what I'm doing now, taking care of myself, because nobody else ever did." She tried to argue. I told her I was moving to Seattle. I would send my new address when I was settled. She started crying. She said I was tearing the family apart. I said the family was already torn. I was just finally admitting it. I didn't hear from Dad until a week later. He left a voicemail. He sounded confused more than anything. He said he didn't understand what happened, that I seemed fine at the wedding, that Hannah was upset and Mom was upset, that maybe I should apologize and work things out, that family is important, that we needed to stick together. I didn't call him back. I packed my apartment. I gave notice at my job. I said goodbye to the few friends I had locally. 2 weeks after the wedding, I drove to Seattle, 22 hours with all my important stuff crammed in my car. I rented a small apartment in Capitol Hill. I started my new job. I bought new furniture piece by piece. I made new friends who knew nothing about me except what I chose to tell them, and I never mentioned having a sister. Hannah tried to reach out a few times in those first months, texts that swung between apologetic and accusatory. She said she didn't understand why I was doing this, that she loved me, that I was overreacting, that I needed therapy. Mom sent care packages, cookies and cards with generic messages about missing me, nothing that acknowledged what actually happened. Dad sent a check for my birthday, same amount he always sent, with a note that said, "Hope you're doing well." I cashed the check. I donated the cookies to a homeless shelter. I sent a thank you text that was polite and empty. 6 months after I moved, Hannah had a baby. A boy. She sent me a photo. He had her eyes. I sent a gift card and a card that said congratulations. I didn't ask to visit. She didn't invite me. A year after the wedding, Mom got sick again. Not cancer this time. Heart problems. Serious but manageable with medication and lifestyle changes. Hannah called me crying. She said she couldn't handle it. She had a baby. She had her job. She needed help. She asked if I would come home just for a few weeks, just to help get Mom stable. She said she couldn't do it alone. I told her no. She was silent for a long time. Then she said I was being cruel, that Mom needed me. I said Mom needed someone, but it didn't have to be me. She could hire help. She could ask other family members. She could figure it out the way I had figured out everything else in my life, without a support system, without recognition. Hannah hung up on me. Mom called later that day. She sounded weak, but she was definitely working the sympathy angle. She said she didn't understand why I was being like this, that she was sorry if she hurt my feelings, that she never meant to make me feel less important. But she needed me now. And wasn't that what daughters did? Help their mothers when they were sick? I told her I did help. For 18 months I helped. And afterward, nobody even remembered I was there. She cried. She said that wasn't fair. I said, maybe not. But it was true. I told her I hoped she felt better. I meant it. I didn't want her to suffer. I just couldn't be the one to save her this time. Dad called me a few days later. He was angry, more emotional than I had ever heard him. He said I was abandoning my family, that I was selfish, that he had raised me better than this, that he was disappointed in me. I almost laughed, disappointed in me, the daughter he barely looked at, the one he forgot in every story, the one who didn't exist in his version of our family. I told him I was sorry he felt that way. I said I was not abandoning anyone. I was just not sacrificing myself anymore. He said that was the same thing. I said maybe in his mind it was, but in mine, it was survival. I haven't spoken to any of them in 8 months now. I still get occasional texts, birthday wishes, holiday photos. Hannah sends pictures of her son. He's walking now. He looks happy. I'm glad for him. I hope his parents see him. Mom sends updates on her health. She's doing better. She hired a home health aide. Dad took early retirement to help out. They figured it out without me, which proves they never actually needed me. They just needed someone to do the hard parts. And when I did the hard parts, without complaint, they felt entitled to my labor, to my time, to my erasure. I have a good life now, a job I enjoy, friends who know my name, a therapist who helped me understand that leaving was not cruelty. It was self-preservation, that I didn't owe anyone access to me just because we shared blood. Sometimes I wonder if they tell people I'm dead. It would be easier than explaining why I don't come home for holidays. Or maybe they just don't mention me at all. Maybe I'm just the daughter who moved away, the one who is always a little distant. They probably don't talk about the wedding, on the seat near the exit door, about the speeches that never said my name. They probably think I overreacted, that I was too sensitive, that I threw away a family over something small. But it wasn't small. It was decades of being invisible. It wasn't small, it was decades of being invisible, of being the person no one ever truly saw until they needed something. Sometimes I wonder if they miss me, if they regret the years they took me for granted, or if I'm just a footnote in their lives now. I've built something new for myself. It's not perfect, but it's mine, and it's more than I ever had with them. The days feel longer now, but in a good way. I'm not rushing from one thing to another to meet someone else's expectations. There are moments when I miss the idea of family, the one I used to dream of as a kid. When I thought maybe, one day, they'd realize how much I mattered. The truth is, I've learned that love, real love, isn't something you earn by being invisible for others. It's something you give yourself permission to accept. But I've stopped longing for it. That version of family doesn't exist, not for me at least, and if I'm being honest, it's probably for the best. So, I make my own holidays now, I gather my friends around, we cook together, we share stories. We laugh more than we should, and I'm finally at peace with it. There are still days when I feel a pang of guilt, when I think of the baby, the one I've never met, the one who'll grow up in a world without me in it. But I know this, I'm not the one who decided that. I didn't walk away from a family. I walked toward myself. And that's the person who deserves my loyalty, the one who's been here all along, waiting to be seen. I keep thinking about the day I finally left, the way I felt when I drove away from that wedding, from them, like I was saying goodbye to a life that was never truly mine. I used to think that leaving would hurt more, but leaving was the first step toward freedom. I'm not going back. I don't think I'll ever go back, and that's a decision I can live with. And my only hope is that someone else hears this story sooner than I did.